Why did international air travel completely stop for hours last week without a single threat being made? It turns out, hackers found a secret vulnerability in the backbone of European infrastructure, using only low-cost hardware to paralyze the skies. I'm going to show you exactly how this silent drone hack bypassed elite security protocols.
400 billion euros of commercial airspace capability, paralyzed by a frequency burst lasting less than 12 milliseconds. The kinetic energy of 3,000 wide-body aircraft was effectively deleted from the equation, not by a missile, but by a lie, a digital hallucination.
Try 700 billion, Mark. You're only counting the ticket sales and the jet fuel burn. You're ignoring the just-in-time supply chain hemorrhage. We aren't just looking at delayed vacations. We are looking at the immediate cessation of high-value cargo logistics for an entire continent. Every second those turbines aren't spinning, the global GDP bleeds out roughly $200,000, and the invoice is still running.
Because the physics didn't make sense. That's why the controllers froze. At 8 o'clock UTC, the radar screens over Heathrow didn't show a blank space. They showed impossible density, ghost echoes. We had systems registering Mach 2 descents from commercial airliners that were actually parked at the gate. The collision avoidance algorithms, TCAs, triggered automatically on 400 separate aircraft simultaneously. The onboard computers screamed "pull up" because the math said they were about to occupy the same physical space as another object.
And that represents the single greatest point of negligence in modern aviation history. We built a $1 trillion infrastructure on the assumption of trust. We assumed that if a signal said "I am here," it was telling the truth. We built a glass house, locked the front door with biometric scanners, and left the back window wide open. The insurance premiums alone after today will bankrupt 3 major carriers by the end of the quarter. This wasn't a failure of technology, it was a failure of asset protection.
It was a failure of the RF spectrum, specifically the Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast Protocol, ADSB. It's unencrypted, it's unverified. It is literally a radio shouting coordinates into the void, hoping someone listens. What happened today wasn't a hack in the traditional sense. Nobody cracked a firewall, nobody guessed a password. They simply bought a software-defined radio for less than the price of a tank of gas and whispered a lie into the 1090 megahertz frequency.
That is the number that makes me want to vomit. The ROI on this attack is infinite. We are talking about an asymmetric disruption where the cost of entry is under $100, and the damage output is in the 11-figure range. If you are a state actor or even a bored anarchist, this is the ultimate leverage. You grounded the Luftwaffe, the RAF, and every FedEx cargo hauler in the hemisphere with a mock device you can buy on Amazon next to a toaster.
And the terrifying part isn't the grounding. It's the ghost pattern. The data logs show the Phantom aircraft weren't just random noise, they were choreographed. The spoofed signals mimicked the precise glide slopes of incoming heavy traffic, but with a 4-degree deviation, just enough to trigger the automated safety lockouts, but not enough to look like obvious glitches immediately. Whoever programmed this knew the specific tolerance thresholds of the Eurocontrol servers. They used the system's own safety logic to strangle it.
Which implies an insider or someone who has spent years dissecting the procurement documents of these control towers. This is bureaucratic warfare. They weaponized the safety protocols. The paralysis wasn't caused by the drone, it was caused by the reaction to the drone. We shut ourselves down, we panicked. The system is designed to default to stop when the data is conflicting. They fed us conflicting data, and we pulled the emergency brake on the entire European economy.
Kinetic impact usually requires mass. It requires velocity. Today proved you can achieve kinetic stopping power with zero mass, just pure information. The radar screens are flatlining, not because the planes are broken, but because the sensors can no longer distinguish between a Boeing 777 and a line of code generated by a Raspberry Pi in a backpack. The sky isn't empty. It's full of ghosts.
And until we figure out how to verify those signals, not a single insurer will underwrite a takeoff. The clock is ticking. The perishable cargo is rotting in the holds, and the shareholders are watching their portfolios vaporize. We need to dissect exactly how this hardware worked, because right now, a kid with a soldering iron is holding the world hostage.
Let's look at the weapon. Everyone is looking for a Predator drone or a hijacked satellite uplink. Stop looking up. Look at the ground. The device that blinded Europe fits in a backpack. We are likely looking at a generic software-defined radio, an SDR, something like a Hack RF1 or a Lime SDR. You can buy these legally for research. They are essentially open-ended radio transceivers that can tune into anything from a garage door opener to a Boeing 777's transponder.
And the software? It's on GitHub, open source. The barriers to entry here aren't technical. They are barely even inconvenient. A teenager with a basic understanding of Python scripts could download a repository designed to test ADSB vulnerabilities and, with a few line changes, turn it into a jammer. We aren't fighting a nation-state with a dedicated cyber warfare unit. We are fighting the democratization of electronic warfare. The capital expenditure for this attack was effectively zero.
Here's the mechanics of the kill. ADSB, or Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast, is the heartbeat of modern air traffic control. Every second, an aircraft broadcasts its GPS position, altitude, and call sign. It shouts, "I am Flight 101. I am at 30,000 feet." The ground stations listen. The other planes listen. It's a peer-to-peer network built on total promiscuity. It accepts any packet formatted correctly. It does not ask for a password. It does not check a digital signature.
Because when the standards were written in the early 2000s, the industry was obsessed with efficiency, not malicious actors. They wanted to cram as much data as possible into a narrow bandwidth to replace aging radar systems. Encryption adds data overhead. Verification adds latency, so in the name of saving milliseconds and bandwidth costs, they stripped away the security layer entirely. We optimized for speed and sacrificed sovereignty over the data.
So, the attacker sets up their SDR on a high elevation point, maybe a hill near Frankfurt or a rooftop in Paris. They start broadcasting raw hexadecimal packets on 1090 MHz. These packets are mathematically perfect replicas of real aircraft data. The ground receivers, which are essentially dumb antennas, pick up the signal. Because the attacker is closer to the receiver than the actual planes, their signal is stronger. It's the capture effect in FM radio physics. The louder signal wins. The system ignores the real plane because the ghost is shouting louder.
And suddenly, the air traffic control screens light up with targets that don't exist, but the system doesn't know they don't exist. The collision warning software sees two vectors intersecting, the real plane and the ghost plane. It calculates a collision in 30 seconds. It forces a resolution advisory. The pilot gets a red alert in the cockpit. They have to maneuver. Immediately, they dive or climb to avoid a plane that isn't there. Now multiply that by 500 flights in a congested sector.
That's the brilliance of the engineering. They didn't just flood the channel with noise. That would be jamming. And we can filter noise. They injected context. They created a phantom fleet. The ghost aircraft had realistic flight numbers, realistic speeds, and realistic trajectories. They effectively DDoSed reality. The physics of the airspace became corrupted. You can't land a plane if you can't trust where the ground is or where the other planes are. When the sensor data is poisoned, the only safe option is to stop moving.
Which is exactly what they wanted. They didn't need to crash a plane to destroy the industry. They just had to introduce doubt. If you can't trust the radar, you can't fly. IFR, Instrument Flight Rules. If you can't fly IFR, you are grounded. The entire European airspace operates on the presumption that the dots on the screen are real. Today, that presumption died. We have billions of dollars of avionics hardware that is now essentially useless because we can't trust the invisible inputs feeding it. The cascading failure is hitting the logistics hubs now. Frankfurt Cargo City is at 100% capacity. They have no space to unload incoming trucks because the outgoing flights haven't left. Perishable goods, pharmaceuticals, fresh produce, organ transplants are expiring on the tarmac. This is the fragility of just-in-time. We removed all the buffers in the global supply chain to maximize efficiency. We assumed the planes would always fly. When they stop, the inventory rot begins within 4 hours.
And the automated systems made it worse. This is the paradox of automation. The safety systems reacted faster than the humans could understand the threat. When the ghost signals appeared, the automated ground stops triggered instantly across national borders. The computers talked to each other and agreed, unsafe condition. By the time a human analyst looked at the raw signal data and said, hey, this signal strength is impossible for a plane at that altitude, the order to ground the fleet had already propagated through the network.
The human latency was the killer. It took 30 minutes for the engineers to confirm it was a spoof. In those 30 minutes, airlines lost flight slots they can't get back. Crews timed out on their legal duty hours. Passengers missed connections. The ripple effect means the schedule won't recover for a week. The financial damage of the reaction dwarfs the cost of the attack by a factor of 1 billion to 1. We spent millions on AI to optimize routes, and that same AI optimized the shutdown speed.
The fix is the nightmare. You can't just patch this over the air. The hardware on existing aircraft, the transponders themselves, are dumb boxes. They don't have the processing power to handle encrypted keys or blockchain verification. To fix this permanently, you have to physically rip out the avionics bay of 25,000 commercial aircraft and replace the hardware. That is a 10-year project.
So for the next 10 years, we are operating on hope. No, the insurance markets won't allow it. We are going to see a regression. We will see a return to primary radar, using literal radio waves, bouncing off metal, as the source of truth, abandoning the digital precision of ADSB. We are going backward technologically to move forward financially. It's a retreat. We are admitting that the digital layer is too vulnerable to support the physical economy.
It's the end of the open sky era. We are going to have to treat the RF spectrum like a combat zone. We need signal fingerprinting, using AI to analyze the minute hardware imperfections in a transmitter to verify if it's a real Boeing radio or a cheap hack. We need RF DNA. If the signal doesn't match the unique electrical signature of the plane's hardware, the tower ignores it. But that technology is military grade. Rolling it out to Cessna pilots and budget airlines, good luck.
Until then, every flight is a gamble. The trust is gone. Every time a controller sees a blip on the screen, they will hesitate. That hesitation is dangerous. That hesitation costs fuel. That hesitation reduces capacity. The hacker didn't just steal time, they stole the confidence of the entire system. And the terrifying part, we still haven't found the transmitter. It's battery-powered. It's silent now. It could be in a trash can in Berlin or a ditch in Lyon.
The sky didn't fall today. It just turned into a lie. And in the world of high-velocity engineering, a lie is just as deadly as a bird strike. We survived the day, but I don't know how we survived the new reality. The era of trusting the instruments is over now. We have to verify everything.
And verification costs money. The ticket prices just went up 40%. Welcome to the new secure world. It's slower, it's darker, and it's a hell of a lot more expensive.